Welcome back. So, Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights. A team that generates a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion. A team that came into the league, went to the Stanley Cup final their first year. And then since then, it's been about trying to get back to that, right? Final four appearances twice over their first 4 years, other than the Stanley Cup final. And this is a team that really, in all honesty, should bounce back next year. But there's definitely some issues here. End of the year press conference, when your GM says, "Don't you want to ask me about the dysfunction?" And then when they say, "What?" and he goes, hey, there isn't any. It's an odd thing to just bring up out of the blue, isn't it? Just imagine during a live stream if I said, "Hey, anybody can ask about the divorce?" We're just kidding. People be like, "Wait, really? Is that what's going?" So yeah, it's weird to just kind of bring that up unsolicited, right? So yeah, for the Vegas Golden Knights, it was a very long season, and it was a very black and blue season for this team. A lot of injuries. That's absolutely valid that injuries caused a lot of the problems for Vegas. A lot of their top producers not in the lineup, whether it's Pacioretty, whether it's Stone, whoever. But for Vegas, the question really becomes one of, so going forward, how do you fix it? And not just the injury problem, obviously, you have to hope for better health. But how do you make sure that you have a team that can stay in the hunt? How do you make sure that you are taking the steps you need to in order to get closer to that goal of a Stanley Cup? Because that was the goal, and they seem to be getting further away from it. So their final record was 43-31-8, 34 regulation wins. It's a good record. And most seasons, I would think that it's 94 points. That'll get you into the playoffs. At least some seasons that'll get you into the playoffs. Not this year. This year, the bar was definitely higher. So for Vegas, the 43 wins, the fact that they end up with 94 points, it doesn't matter. Because this was a team that was expected to finish first in the Pacific. Remember, the Pacific's bad. Vegas has got that down. That's Vegas's division. And then it's not, right? So how do you get back to where Vegas is going to be one of the top teams in the league? Well, I do think we've gotten to a point where they're overrated on some level. And I say this because I've noticed with a lot of analysts, towards the end of the season, I kept hearing, Vegas gets in, they could do some real damage. And I kept thinking, I don't know that they can. And I don't know that even if everybody was in their lineup, if they would have been capable of an upset win over the Flames, over the Avalanche. It's possible. I'm not saying they can't have done it, but I don't know with the way this team's put together if it would have happened. And I talked about it in a recent video and about Jack Eichel and his part. So Eichel's not one of the top 5 producers. So I'll just say here, I think that while he may be 100%, it takes a while to get back up to NHL speed. And not only that, but being on a new team, you've got new line mates. Not every player excels right out of the gate. So I'm not panicked about the fact that Eichel didn't necessarily set the world on fire his first go-around with the Vegas Golden Knights. It'll be interesting to see when he's right there from training camp on, how well he plays and what kind of numbers he puts up. So their goal scoring, 262 goals for, that was 12th in the league. Their goals against, 244, that's 15th in the league. So plus 18 goal differential, not bad. Their power play, not great, 18.4%, that's 24th. The penalty kill, also not great at 21st, 77.4%. So those are numbers that they'll want to fix, and if they're top 10 in both goals for and goals against, that'd be preferable, but they should bounce back next year. A healthy Mark Stone over 82 games would help bring the goals against down, should also help the power play, as well as the goals for, and of course Pacioretty being healthy would definitely help the goals for as well. But as I keep saying, these guys aren't getting younger. So we have a team here that there's a lot of veterans, and you know, usually once guys are 30 and older, the production starts to drop off. Their play doesn't necessarily, but the production may drop off. So you need other players who are able to step up and produce those points. Now, they started 4-4 in October. Not great, not bad. It's all right. November, they were 8-5. December, they were 10-3. So, coming into 2022, they were in excellent position to finish first in their division and have home ice through at least the first couple of rounds. Then January hits. 4-4-3. February, they were 3-4-1. March, they were 8-8. And then in April, they were 6-3-4. And of course, what highlights how their season ended, 3 shootout losses in a row between April 24th and 27th. Weren't they like 0 for 17 on the shootouts or something ridiculous? Or 0 for 11, something like that. Anyways, they were 0 for in those 3 shootouts. And so that really stands out. Now, shootouts, I've said this before, shootouts, it's not really a hockey play. It's a skills competition. I'm not a big fan of shootouts, but they needed somebody to bury pucks there, and it just doesn't happen. So really the question with Vegas next year is one of how we make sure that they're not in a situation where they have to wait until the end of the season to try to do that. Try to use those shootouts to get in. And of course, Dallas ends up getting in instead. The key date to me, and I went with, there's a lot of key dates, but this one to me is important. Robin Lehner, April 25th, it's announced he's done for the season. We had heard rumors before that he was going to be done for the season, and Peter DeBoer pushed back on that and said, no, I expect him on the bench. He's fine. There were discussions about whether or not there was a fallout between DeBoer and Lehner. Leonard's a very strong personality. He doesn't just take things. So there may very well have been some disagreements between coach and goaltender. And then because Leonard's the guy they picked over Fleury, whether it's right or wrong to move on from Fleury, we can have that debate at another time. But you can only deal with what Vegas has right now. So if there is a broken relationship with Leonard, they're going to have to deal with that in the offseason. They're going to have to figure out how they go forward from here. Logan Thompson looked very good. Maybe Logan Thompson ends up being the answer. Laurent Brossoit, of course, was added to the many players who get injured. A lot of injuries. So you go with Brossoit and Thompson next year, and maybe Leonard moves on. I don't think so. I think they're going to try to stick to their guns on this because, again, with Vegas, they do have this interesting reputation of bringing guys in as kind of hired guns and moving on from others, and we'll see how long that can go on for before players say, you know, I want to, when I'm a free agent, I want to go somewhere where there's some stability, and I'm not going to sign a contract somewhere. Like, you might sign a cheap contract to go play in Tampa. Well, if guys sign cheap contracts to go play in Tampa, and if Tampa just trades them all off, right? So if Vegas is trading everybody out, then you have that lack of stability, and it might be harder to attract guys. Now, I don't think there'll ever be a big problem attracting guys to the city of Vegas because it's a beautiful city and all that, but we'll see, right? Because that talk of dysfunction is there. That's why Kelly McCrimmon just mentions that out of the blue, probably, right? So, yeah, their top producer this year was Marchessault, 76 games, 30 goals, 36 assists, 66 points. Marchessault's a very good player. Is he a number one superstar player? No. That's why they brought in Eichel. Eichel is meant to be that player. Chandler Stevenson had a very good year, 79 games, 21 goals, 43 assists, 64 points. Shea Theodore's fantastic, 78 games, 14 goals, 38 assists, 52 points. Pietrangelo had a good year, 80 games, 13 goals, 31 assists, 44 points. And Dodonov, the traded and then not traded Dodonov, 78 games, 20 goals, 23 assists, 43 points. And it's interesting because down the stretch, Dodonov was one of their best producers after that trade was nullified. So if that trade hadn't been nullified, they probably don't end up in a situation where we're talking about the shootouts being the problem. They probably would have been mathematically eliminated before that. Because at the time of the trade, I thought it was weird that Dodonov had been one of their better scorers and they're just trading him off to Anaheim. So, of course, the NHL said, no, this wasn't done right. He had his no-trade list submitted, and it was submitted in time, so that's all still valid, and that nullified that deal for the Anaheim Ducks, which is kind of too bad because Dodonov might have helped the Ducks a little bit down the stretch, but hey. So, yeah, it is fascinating to see how all this works with Vegas and how the dysfunction will always be coming in. Whether it's with trading, with cap management, whatever it is. Now, they're pending UFAs, not a lot. You've got Janmark and you've got Riley Smith. Riley Smith has been there from the beginning. I don't think he comes back next year. I will say I think for Riley Smith, his most productive seasons are probably in the rearview mirror. But I would expect him to sign somewhere as a free agent. Might I suggest to him to come back to Boston? Even though by the end of his time in Boston, maybe Dallas would be... But anyways, maybe he goes to Vancouver and he completes the triumvirate. But either way, I think Smith's probably on his way out. Janmark, we'll see. But they're still going to have problems with that salary cap. This is a team that's going to be butting right up against the salary cap. And I don't know how they're going to be able to afford to make this work. And again, people will say, well, they'll just go over the cap, blah, 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 blah. But it bit them this year. It absolutely bit them this year. So it can bite you again. Not every team can do the Tampa Bay Lightning thing and end up winning a Stanley Cup and go, ha, salary cap. We laugh at your salary cap. So, yeah, for Vegas, the one thing, too, that I think we found out down the stretch, when Stone came back, and he was just not Mark Stone, his LTIR was legit. He was not 100%. So we'll see this coming season whether or not they can get everybody back on the same page, whether or not they can stay healthy, and whether they can do it all under the salary cap. I do think that we're going to have a lot of discussions on the Vegas Golden Knights this summer. I think that we're going to see some moves being made. The one thing is, I think if they were going to replace the coach, I think they would have done it already. I think if there was any decision on whether or not to fire a GM, I think they would have done it already. And word had it towards the end of the season, and again, watching the Vegas broadcasts and hearing them talk about it, the expectation was that ownership understood that injuries sunk this team. And so with injuries having sunk their hopes for the playoffs, they weren't looking to make a change behind the bench or in the GM's office. So yeah, we may see another version of this next year, and maybe they win the division. Maybe they miss the playoffs again. They're going to be wildly unpredictable. I'll be here to report on it whenever that happens. Whatever happens, I'll be here to report on it. So let me know your thoughts regarding Vegas this season in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.